The marble halls of Boston's federal courthouse fell silent as 10-year-old Marcus Taylor rose from his seat, clutching a worn leather journal in trembling hands. "That's a lie, Your Honor," he declared, his clear voice cutting through the stunned silence like a blade. "And I can prove every word of it. No one could have imagined that this moment of courage would expose a pharmaceutical empire's deadly secret, unravel a decades-long conspiracy that had claimed thousands of lives, and reveal how the most trusted healthcare system in New England had been built on a foundation of lies." Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. 3 months earlier, Marcus sat in his grandfather's study, surrounded by stacks of medical journals and clinical trial reports. His mother's final diary lay open before him, its pages filled with detailed observations of her symptoms during the experimental treatment that was supposed to save her life. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the antique desk as he cross-referenced dates and medical records, looking for the pattern that had been nagging at his mind since the funeral. "Marcus," his grandfather, Dr. James Taylor, called from downstairs. "Dinner's ready, son." "Just a minute, Grandpa," Marcus replied, his eyes fixed on the documents spread before him. Something wasn't adding up in the Novitech drug trials, and he could feel the truth hovering just beyond his reach. The smell of his grandfather's signature lasagna finally drew him downstairs, where the elderly physician waited at their kitchen table. Another letter from Meridian Healthcare Systems lay unopened beside his plate, probably another attempt to reach a settlement about his daughter's death. "You should be playing with your friends, not buried in medical research," Dr. Taylor said softly, his weathered face etched with concern. Years of practicing medicine had taught him to recognize pain hiding behind determination, and his grandson's obsession with understanding his mother's death worried him deeply. Marcus shook his head, pulling a crumpled page from his pocket. "The trial data's wrong, Grandpa. Look at these symptom progression rates." He spread the paper on the table, pointing to highlighted sections. Mom's journal describes side effects 3 months before Meridian claims they first appeared in any patient. And she wasn't the only one. I found similar patterns in other patient reports, but they're all buried in different databases, separated so nobody sees the full picture. Dr. Taylor sighed, studying the meticulous notes. His grandson had inherited his mother's brilliant mind and his father's unflagging determination. Before he could respond, a sharp knock at the door made them both jump. Through the window, they could see an expensive Tesla in the driveway, its sleek black surface reflecting the setting sun. Dr. Taylor opened the door to find Caroline Pierce, Meridian Healthcare's chief legal counsel, standing on their porch. Her professional smile didn't reach her eyes. "Dr. Taylor," she said smoothly, "I thought we should have a chat before tomorrow's hearing, make things easier for everyone." Marcus stepped forward, clutching his mother's journal. "You mean you want us to take the settlement and stop asking questions about why Mom and other patients died during the Novitech trials?" Pierce's smile tightened. "Young man, these are complicated medical matters that children shouldn't concern themselves with. Like how the original trial data showed liver toxicity in 40% of cases, but the published results only reported 3%. Those kinds of complications." Marcus's voice was steady, even as his hands trembled. The attorney's face darkened. "Dr. Taylor, you should teach your grandson that some questions are better left unasked. Boston can be a dangerous city for people who stick their noses where they don't belong." "Are you threatening a child?" Dr. Taylor's voice carried the authority of 4 decades in medicine. "Of course not, just offering friendly advice." Pierce straightened her designer jacket. "See you in court tomorrow. Judge Morrison doesn't like to be kept waiting." After she left, Dr. Taylor locked the door with shaking hands. "Marcus, what have you gotten yourself into?" "The truth, Grandpa." And they're terrified of it. Later that night, Marcus couldn't sleep. He sat at his desk, his laptop screen illuminating countless spreadsheets and trial reports. Years of his mother's research work at Meridian had given her access to files that, when pieced together, painted a disturbing picture. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Drop it, kid. Some doors shouldn't be opened." Marcus stared at the message, then at his mother's journal. Tomorrow he would stand in Judge Morrison's courtroom. Tomorrow he would either expose the truth about Novitech and the lives it had claimed, or learn firsthand why Boston's most powerful healthcare corporation was willing to do anything to keep its secrets buried. He picked up the latest settlement offer from Meridian, his mind racing through the evidence and connections he'd uncovered. In the margin of the letter, he wrote a single word: tomorrow. The night grew deeper, but Marcus kept working. He knew that in just a few hours, he would either reveal a truth that would save countless lives or discover exactly how far Meridian Healthcare would go to silence those who dared to question their authority. Dawn cast long shadows through the courthouse windows as Marcus and his grandfather made their way through security. The morning air carried the weight of anticipation, heavy with the knowledge that nothing would be the same after today. Marcus clutched his backpack, filled with evidence that had taken months to compile, patient records, trial data, and most importantly, his mother's journal. "Remember what I taught you about respect in court?" Dr. Taylor whispered, adjusting Marcus's tie. The boy nodded, remembering his mother's words about a different kind of respect, the kind that meant standing up for truth, no matter the cost. Dr. Sarah Chen had been a rising star at Meridian Healthcare, brilliant and compassionate in equal measure. Her work on developing treatments for rare genetic disorders had earned her international recognition, but it was her dedication to her patients that truly set her apart. She kept detailed records of everything, a habit that had once made her. Colleagues joke about her obsession with documentation. Now, those same records would become her final testimony. Marcus thought back to the day everything changed. He'd been sitting in his mother's home office, helping her organize research files, when she first noticed something wrong in the Novitech trial data. "These numbers don't make sense," she'd muttered, comparing datasets. "The adverse reaction rates are completely different from what we're seeing in the clinic." That was 6 months before she unexpectedly enrolled herself in the trial, determined to understand what was happening to her patients. 3 months later, she was gone, leaving, behind a journal full of carefully documented observations and a son who inherited her unyielding pursuit of truth. They entered courtroom 204, where Judge Morrison's name gleamed in gold letters on the door. Inside, Caroline Pierce sat at the plaintiff's table, surrounded by a team of attorneys from Boston's most prestigious law firm. She smirked when she saw them, leaning over to whisper something to a distinguished-looking man Marcus recognized from his research, Dr. Victor Reynolds, Meridian's Chief of Research and Development. "All rise," the bailiff called. "The Honorable Judge Harrison Morrison presiding." Judge Morrison swept into the courtroom, his black robes billowing as he took his seat. His steel-gray eyes scanned the room, lingering briefly on Marcus before focusing on his docket. First case, Meridian Healthcare Systems versus Taylor wrongful accusation and defamation proceedings. Pierce stood, emanating confident authority. "Your Honor, this is a straightforward case. The defendants have made baseless accusations about our Novitech trials, potentially endangering a breakthrough treatment that could help thousands. We're requesting an immediate gag order and sanctions." "Dr. Taylor," Judge Morrison raised an eyebrow. "Your response." Before his grandfather could speak, Marcus stood, his heart pounding but his voice steady. "Your Honor, before you rule, there's something you need to see." The judge's eyes narrowed. "Young man, this is not show and tell." "No, sir," Marcus interrupted, pulling out his mother's journal and a stack of documents. "This is evidence of systematic fraud that's killed at least 28 people, including my mother." The courtroom fell silent. Pierce's smirk vanished as Marcus approached the bench, laying out color-coded papers with highlighted sections. "These are the official trial results Meridian submitted to the FDA," he explained, pointing to one document. "And these are the actual patient data records my mother collected before she died. The differences aren't just statistical errors, they're deliberate alterations." Dr. Reynolds stood abruptly. "Your Honor, this is absurd. We can't allow a child's imagination to—" "Like how you altered the toxicity reports," Marcus countered, pulling up more documents. "Or how you changed dates to hide when the adverse reactions really started. Mom documented everything, Dr. Reynolds, including her conversations with you about the falsified data." A new voice spoke from the back of the courtroom. "Your Honor, we'd be very interested in seeing those documents." Everyone turned to see a woman in a sharp suit standing by the doors. "Special Agent Rebecca Torres, FDA Criminal Investigation Division," she announced, holding up her credentials. "We've been investigating irregularities in Meridian's trial protocols for months." Pierce's face had lost all color. Judge Morrison studied the documents before him, his expression growing darker with each page. "Ms. Pierce, care to explain these discrepancies?" "Your Honor, these are complex medical documents that require proper context, like the context of 15 other patients who showed the same symptoms as my mother," Marcus pressed. "All of them removed from the trial data, their records altered or deleted, except Mom kept copies of everything." The distinguished-looking man beside Pierce suddenly stood, straightening his tie. "This hearing is over," he announced. "We'll need to consult with our additional counsel before proceeding." But Agent Torres was already moving forward, 2 more agents appearing beside her. "Actually, Dr. Reynolds, you'll need to come with us. We have some questions about certain financial transactions related to the Novitech approval process." As federal agents secured the evidence, Marcus noticed movement at the back of the courtroom, a familiar figure slipping out the door. Through his research, he'd seen that face before. James Whitman, Meridian's shadowy chief of special projects, the man whose signature appeared on documents authorizing the altered trial data. Marcus's phone buzzed in his pocket. A message from an unknown number. "You have no idea what you've started, kid. Hope you're ready for war." Looking at his mother's journal, at the truth finally emerging into the light, Marcus felt no fear. Instead, he remembered her favorite saying, "Truth is like a blade. It only bends under pressure if it was flawed to begin with." The real battle was just beginning, but he wasn't fighting alone anymore. His mother's meticulous documentation, his grandfather's unwavering support, and now the federal investigation. All the pieces were falling into place. The empire of lies Meridian had built was about to face its greatest threat, the truth. Preserved in a dying woman's journal, brought to light by her son's refusal to stay silent. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The FDA's downtown Boston office hummed with activity as Agent Torres spread documents across the conference room table. Marcus sat beside his grandfather, watching as federal agents pieced together the evidence he'd gathered. His mother's journal lay at the center of it all, its pages now marked with countless evidence tags. The altered trial data was just the beginning, Agent Torres explained, pinning photos and documents to a massive evidence board. Every time we dig deeper, we find more connections. Meridian isn't just falsifying drug trials. They're part of something much bigger. Marcus studied the board, his mind racing through connections. Look at these approval dates, he pointed out. Every time Meridian pushed through a questionable drug, the same 5 FDA officials signed off on it, and all of them received consulting fees from shell companies traced back to James Whitman. Dr. Taylor leaned forward, adjusting his glasses as he examined financial records. These consulting payments, they match exactly with my daughter's notes about suspicious protocol. On changes, every time the trial parameters were altered to hide adverse reactions, money moved through these accounts. Agent Torres nodded grimly. We've identified similar patterns with 3 other major pharmaceutical companies, all connected to Whitman's network, all using the same methods to push dangerous drugs through approval. Marcus pulled out his laptop, bringing up files he'd compiled during sleepless nights of research. It's not just the approval process, he explained. Look at the patient selection criteria. They deliberately chose people less likely to show severe reactions during the initial trials. Then once the drugs were approved, they expanded to more vulnerable populations. Dr. Taylor finished, his face darkening with understanding. That's why Sarah enrolled herself in the trial. She suspected they were targeting patients with specific genetic markers, people more likely to suffer severe reactions. A young FBI analyst rushed into the room, clutching printouts. Agent Torres, you need to see this. We found encrypted communications between Whitman and someone inside the CDC. They've been burying adverse reaction reports at the federal level. Marcus's screen suddenly flickered, files disappearing as his laptop's security protocols detected an intrusion attempt. They're trying to hack my system, he announced, fingers flying across the keyboard as he activated countermeasures his mother had installed before her death. Smart woman, your mother, Agent Torres observed. She knew they'd try to erase everything. That's why she kept paper records, Marcus explained, patting his backpack, and made sure copies were scattered across different locations, people she trusted, people they'd never think to check. Dr. Taylor's phone buzzed, a text from an unlisted number. The boy needs to back off. Remember what happened to your daughter. He showed it to Agent Torres, who immediately dispatched agents to secure their house. But Marcus was focused on something else. Agent Torres, these shell company registrations, they all trace back to addresses in Switzerland. But look at the timing. Each one was created exactly 3 weeks after a major drug approval. The FBI analyst cross-referenced the dates. He's right. And there's something else. The Swiss accounts all connect to a private bank that's been implicated in healthcare. Fraud cases before. Helvetic Trust Limited. The same bank that handles private accounts for half the pharmaceutical executives in Europe, Dr. Taylor added. Sarah mentioned them in her last notes. She thought they were laundering money from inflated drug prices through offshore research facilities. Suddenly, the building's security alarms blared. Breach in the evidence room, a voice announced. Over the intercom, Agent Torres drew her weapon as other agents rushed to respond. Stay here, she ordered, but Marcus was already putting pieces together. Wait, he called. The evidence room breach. It's a distraction. Look at these network logs. Someone's accessing the FDA's central database right now, trying to alter drug trial records going back 15 years. The young FBI analyst confirmed his assessment. Multiple access points, high-level credentials. They're systematically erasing safety data. Not erasing, Marcus corrected, studying the pattern. They're replacing it with falsified studies, building a paper trail to justify everything they've done. Agent Torres spoke rapidly into her radio, coordinating with cybersecurity teams. Can we stop it? Better, Marcus replied, his mother's technical expertise guiding his hands. We can trace it. Every change they make leaves a digital fingerprint. Mum built a program to track exactly these kinds of alterations. As they watched, his screen filled with data points, each unauthorized change creating a map of corruption that spread far beyond Meridian. International pharmaceutical companies, regulatory agencies, research facilities, all connected through a web of falsified data and hidden money trails. This isn't just about one company or one drug, Dr. Taylor realized, watching the evidence unfold. They've built an entire system to profit from human suffering. Marcus nodded, his determination strengthening. And now we can prove it. Every change they make trying to cover their tracks just gives us more evidence of what they've done. His phone buzzed with another threatening message, but he barely noticed. The truth was emerging, just as his mother had planned. She'd known they would try to bury everything, so she'd created tools to ensure their every attempt at concealment would only reveal more. Agent Torres studied the growing evidence map with grim satisfaction. Your mother built the framework to expose everything. She just needed someone brave enough to set it in motion. She knew I would, Marcus said softly, touching her journal. That's why she documented everything. She knew someday someone would have to stand up and speak the truth. Outside the FDA building, news vans began arriving as word of the investigation leaked. Inside, federal agents rushed to secure evidence as the scope of corruption became clear. But in that conference room, surrounded by proof of his mother's foresight and courage, Marcus felt stronger than ever. The war for truth was expanding, reaching into the highest levels of power. But with each attempt to silence them, their opponents only proved how desperate they were to hide what was about to be exposed. The real question wasn't whether the truth would come out, but how many lives they could save when it did. The morning sun filtered through the blinds of Dr. Elena Rodriguez's office at Massachusetts General Hospital as she studied the medical records Marcus had brought her. As one of Boston's leading geneticists and his mother's former colleague, she was uniquely positioned to understand the implications of what they'd discovered. These genetic markers, she said, highlighting sections of the data, they're not random. Meridian specifically selected trial participants with variations that would mask the drug's most dangerous side effects during initial testing. But your mother saw the pattern. Marcus nodded, pulling up more files on his laptop. She created a database tracking genetic variations across all their trials. Every time they approved a new drug, they started with patients least likely to show problems. Then, after approval, they marketed aggressively to populations with higher risk factors. Dr. Rodriguez finished, her face grim, maximizing profits while burying the evidence in scattered case reports. Brilliant and utterly ruthless. Agent Torres entered with new information from the FBI's forensic accountants. We've traced money flowing from Helvetic Trust to research facilities in 7 countries, each one supposedly conducting independent verification studies. But all controlled by Whitman's network, Marcus interrupted, showing them a complex web of connections he'd mapped. Every independent lab that verified Meridian's safety data was actually funded through shell companies. They created the illusion of scientific consensus. Dr. Taylor studied his grandson's work with pride and concern. In just days, Marcus had connected dots that investigators had missed for years, but the deeper they dug, the more dangerous their opponents became. A nurse rushed in, clutching a tablet. "Dr. Rodriguez, you need to see this. Patient records are being altered across the hospital network. Years of treatment histories, changing in real time." Marcus was already accessing the hospital's secure systems using protocols his mother had designed. They're not just erasing data, they're changing diagnostic codes, making it look like patients had different conditions than what was actually treated. Obscuring the evidence of adverse reactions, Dr. Rodriguez realized. If the patient's original conditions are changed in the records, then any complications can be blamed on pre-existing conditions rather than drug reactions, Dr. Taylor finished. They're rewriting medical history. Agent Torres immediately contacted the FBI's cyber division, but Marcus saw something in the pattern of changes. Wait, look at how they're altering the records, the timestamps, the access patterns. This isn't Meridian. This is coming from inside the FDA itself. Dr. Rodriguez's computer chimed with an urgent email. Her face paled as she read it. They're suspending my research grants, all of them, citing procedural irregularities that mysteriously appeared in my application files overnight. They're trying to discredit anyone who might support us, Dr. Taylor said, but Marcus was focused on something else. No, he said, studying the digital trails. They're leaving breadcrumbs. Look at these access logs. They want us to focus on the FDA while something bigger is happening. His fingers flew across the keyboard, following the electronic trail. The hospital records, the grant suspensions, they're all using the same security certificates issued by Medicrypt Securities, Agent Torres read over his shoulder, a subsidiary of Global Health Partners. Marcus finished, the world's largest healthcare data management company. They control medical records for thousands of hospitals worldwide. Dr. Rodriguez's eyes widened. If they control the records, they can rewrite medical history on a global scale, Marcus said, erasing evidence of drug reactions, changing diagnoses, hiding patterns that could expose dangerous medications. Mom discovered this too. It's in her last notes, but I only just understood what she meant. He opened his mother's journal to her final entries. She wrote about a digital curtain being built through medical software. Every hospital, every clinic, every research facility, all their data flowing through systems designed to hide the truth. Agent Torres was already making calls, but they could see the scale of what they faced. This wasn't just about one company or one drug. The entire system of medical data had been compromised. A message appeared on Marcus's screen. Clever boy, but do you really want to see how deep this goes? Ask Dr. Rodriguez about Project Oracle. Dr. Rodriguez's face went white. How did they know? She took a shaking breath. 10 years ago, I was part of a classified research project. We were developing AI systems to analyze global health data, predict disease patterns, identify treatment risks. But when we found patterns of deliberate harm, the project was shut down, Marcus guessed, and the data disappeared. She nodded. 3 researchers died in accidents. The rest of us got the message. But your mother, she didn't. Just keep records of Meridian's trials. She built a shadow network, gathering data they thought they'd erased, creating a truth they couldn't control. Marcus's laptop chimed with an incoming connection. A secure chat window opened. Your mother's network is still active. We've been waiting for someone to find it, ready to see what she really discovered. The message was signed with a symbol Marcus recognized from his mother's journal. DNA helix formed into an infinity loop, the mark of Project Oracle's hidden survivors. Dr. Taylor gripped his grandson's shoulder. Marcus, these people, we don't know if we can trust them. But Marcus remembered his mother's words. Truth doesn't come from any one source. It emerges from patterns, from connections, from the courage of people willing to see what others hide. He typed a response. Show me everything. As his screen filled with encrypted data streams, Marcus knew they'd crossed a point of no return. The digital curtain was about to be torn away, exposing secrets that would shake the foundations of global healthcare. The question wasn't whether they'd face resistance, but whether the truth could spread faster than those trying to bury it. The real war was just beginning, and it would be fought not just in courtrooms or laboratories, but in the digital realm where history itself could be rewritten. Unless they could stop it. The underground server facility hummed with energy as Marcus worked alongside the surviving members of Project Oracle. Dr. Samira Patel, the project's former lead data scientist, watched in amazement as his fingers flew across multiple keyboards, integrating his mother's hidden network with their own systems. Sarah built something extraordinary, Dr. Patel said, studying the emerging data patterns. While they were busy erasing evidence, she was creating a parallel record of everything. Patient histories, trial data, adverse reactions, all preserved in a distributed network they couldn't find or destroy. Marcus nodded, thinking of the countless nights his mother had spent building this system. She called it the truth chain, every piece of data verified and backed up across thousands of nodes. But it wasn't just about storing information, it was about revealing patterns. On the massive screens surrounding them, those patterns were finally becoming clear. Years of medical data from hospitals worldwide flowed through their analysis systems, revealing connections that had been deliberately hidden. There, Dr. Rodriguez pointed to a cluster of data points. The genetic markers we identified in Meridian's trials, they appear in other companies' research too, always masked, always buried in modified records. Dr. Taylor studied the emerging picture with growing horror. They weren't just testing drugs, they were mapping genetic vulnerabilities, identifying populations they could target with minimal risk of early detection. Agent Torres entered with new intelligence from Interpol. We've identified similar patterns in Europe and Asia. Every major pharmaceutical company involved has connections to global health partners. They've been coordinating their efforts for years. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the facility. Multiple breach attempts detected, the security system announced. Unknown entities attempting to access main servers. They found us, Dr. Patel said, fingers racing across her keyboard to reinforce their defenses. But Marcus saw something different in the attack pattern. No, he said, studying the intrusion attempts. This isn't Meridian or global health. The code structure, the attack vectors, it's military grade. Someone in government is trying to shut us down. His screen filled with warning messages as powerful algorithms hammered their firewalls. But unlike previous attacks, these weren't trying to erase data. They were trying to seize control of the entire network. The Pentagon, Dr. Patel breathed, recognizing the digital signatures. Project Oracle wasn't just about healthcare data. We were building a system that could predict and control disease outbreaks. A biological early warning network. That they could also use to develop targeted bioweapons, Dr. Rodriguez added grimly, by understanding how different populations react to various compounds. They could create drugs that affect specific genetic profiles, Marcus finished, his mother's final warnings suddenly clear. That's why they killed the project. You weren't just finding patterns of harm, you were exposing a decades-long weapons research program hidden inside the pharmaceutical industry. Agent Torres was already contacting her superiors, but the attacks intensified. Government servers worldwide were now targeting their network, trying to contain what they were about to expose. Marcus's phone buzzed with a message from James Whitman himself. You have no idea what you're about to unleash. Some secrets are kept for a reason. But Marcus had seen enough secrets destroy enough lives. His fingers danced across the keyboard, activating protocols his mother had designed for exactly this moment. You're wrong, he typed back. Secrets like these destroy more lives than they save. He pressed enter, and across the globe the truth chain activated. In thousands of hospitals, research facilities and medical centers, the hidden data began to emerge. Not as a flood, but as a steady stream of irrefutable evidence, each piece verified and cross-referenced through the distributed network. What did you do? Agent Torres asked, watching as her phone exploded with alerts from agencies worldwide. Mom called it the Sunshine Protocol, Marcus explained. When they attack the network, instead of trying to defend it, we use their own connections to spread the truth. Every system they use to attack us becomes a new node in our distribution network. Dr. Patel's eyes widened with understanding. The more they try to shut us down, the more they help us expose everything, Marcus finished. You can't stop the truth by attacking it. You only make it stronger. On their screens, they watched as decades of hidden research emerged into the light. Clinical trials that had been buried, genetic studies that had been classified, patterns of deliberate harm that had been concealed, all flowing through systems designed to suppress them. They'll try to discredit it, Dr. Taylor warned. Claim the data is fake, that we're causing panic. Let them try, Marcus said, opening his mother's journal to a page he'd only recently decoded. Mom left instructions for Phase 2. While they're busy attacking the data, they won't notice what's really happening. Dr. Rodriguez studied the journal, her expression changing from confusion to amazement. Sarah, you brilliant woman, she whispered. She didn't just preserve the truth, she found a way to prove it. As if in response, new data streams appeared on their screens. Real-time medical records from hospitals worldwide began showing patterns that matched exactly what the truth chain had revealed. The present was validating the past, creating a feedback loop of evidence that couldn't be dismissed or denied. Your mother built a time bomb of truth, Dr. Patel said softly, and you just lit the fuse. Outside their secure facility, the world was about to change, but in that underground room, surrounded by proof of his mother's foresight and courage, Marcus felt no fear. The truth was emerging exactly as she had planned, spreading through systems designed to suppress it, growing stronger with every attempt to contain it. The real war was just beginning, but they had already won its most crucial battle. The truth was free, and no power on Earth could cage it again. The Pentagon's Emergency Operations Center bristled with tension as military and intelligence officials gathered for an unprecedented crisis meeting. On massive screens, the truth chain's revelations continued to spread across global networks, exposing decades of classified research. Marcus watched the live feed from their secure facility alongside Agent Torres and the Project Oracle team. They've mobilized the National Security Council, Agent Torres reported, reading encrypted communications from her FBI superiors. 3 separate intelligence agencies are trying to contain the information, claiming it's a matter of national security. Dr. Patel monitored the global response through their secure channels. Medical boards in 12 countries have launched emergency reviews of drug trials. Research facilities are being locked down. The entire pharmaceutical industry is in chaos. But Marcus noticed something else in the data streams. Look at the response patterns, he said, highlighting clusters of activity. These aren't just damage control measures. They're accessing specific research archives, moving certain files. They're trying to hide something even bigger than what we've exposed. His screen suddenly filled with new data as his mother's network detected unusual activity at military research facilities worldwide. These bases, he said, pulling up satellite imagery, they all have BSL-4 laboratories, high-security facilities for studying the most dangerous pathogens. Operation Chimera, a new voice said. Everyone turned to see James Whitman himself, walking into their facility, flanked by armed federal agents. Your mother discovered it 3 months before she died. That's why she had to be silenced. Agent Torres drew her weapon, but Whitman held up his hands. I'm not here to stop you. I'm here to help, because what's coming is worse than anything you've imagined. Dr. Rodriguez stepped forward, her face hard with anger. Why should we trust you? You helped kill Sarah. Because I was following orders, Whitman replied, placing a secure drive on the nearest desk. Orders I can no longer follow. Your mother found evidence of genetic weapons development disguised as vaccine research. But what she didn't know was the timeline. They're not planning for some future conflict. The first phase is already in motion. Marcus accessed the drive, his mother's security protocols quickly verifying its contents. What he found made his blood run cold. "These aren't just drug trials," he said, studying the data. "They're population-wide genetic susceptibility tests. Every major vaccination campaign in the past 5 years has been mapping genetic vulnerabilities across entire populations," Whitman finished, "creating a database of how different genetic profiles respond to various compounds, the perfect foundation for targeted biological weapons." Dr. Patel examined the technical specifications with growing horror. The scale of this. They've collected data on millions of people, every major ethnic and genetic group. "And now they're moving to phase 2, Whitman said grimly. The truth chain exposed phase 1, but they'd already achieved their goal. A comprehensive map of human genetic diversity and vulnerability. Now they're preparing to weaponize that knowledge. Marcus's fingers flew across his keyboard, integrating the new data with his mother's network. That's why they're so desperate to contain the truth chain. It's not just about hiding past research. It's about preventing us from exposing what comes next. Suddenly, emergency alerts flashed across their screens. Multiple facilities activating biological containment protocols, Dr. Rodriguez reported. They're preparing to release something. A warning, Whitman explained, a demonstration of what they can do if we don't shut down the truth chain. An engineered virus targeting specific genetic markers. Nothing lethal, just enough to prove they can do it. But Marcus had seen something in the alert patterns. "No," he said, his mind racing through possibilities. "They wouldn't risk actual deployment. This is another smokescreen. Look at the facility protocols. They're designed to draw attention, to make us focus on biological threats while something else happens." He pulled up his mother's final research notes, finding the connection she'd made months ago. The genetic mapping wasn't just about developing weapons. It was about creating a control system, understanding exactly how different populations would respond to various compounds, let them design a whole spectrum of substances, not just weapons, but drugs, that could influence behavior, alter cognitive function, shape entire populations without anyone realizing. Dr. Taylor studied the pharmaceutical production data with new understanding. The drugs they're pushing through approval now. They're not treatments. They're tools for social control. Subtle enough to stay hidden, Whitman confirmed. Marketed as treatments for everything from anxiety to attention disorders. A drop in political engagement here, a shift in social behavior there, engineering compliance one prescription at a time. Agent Torres was already coordinating with other agencies, but Marcus had seen his mother's final warning. "We can't fight this through normal channels," he said. "The system itself is compromised. We need to show everyone the truth, all at once, in a way they can't ignore or dismiss." He opened a secure connection to the truth chain's deepest protocols. Mom built a failsafe, a way to bypass every security system, every classification barrier, every corporate and government firewall. She called it Protocol Prometheus. "Marcus, wait," Dr. Patel warned. "A data release that big. It could crash the entire global medical network. Hospitals, emergency services, everything." "No," Marcus said firmly, his fingers moving across the keyboard with newfound purpose. "Mom designed it to work with existing systems, not destroy them, like sunlight through clouds, illuminating everything without burning what it touches." He turned to Whitman. "You helped kill her to keep these secrets. Now you can help us expose them. Every project, every trial, every hidden protocol, we release it all." Whitman studied the boy who had unraveled decades of deception, seeing in him the same uncompromising determination that had made Sarah Chen a threat. They'll try to stop us, not just with threats or legal action. They'll use everything they have. Marcus thought of his mother's courage, of all the lives at stake, of the truth that could no longer stay hidden. "Let them try," he said, initiating Protocol Prometheus. Sometimes the only way to fight darkness is to bring so much light that shadows have nowhere to hide. Across the globe, secure servers began responding to the protocol's activation. The truth was about to break free, not in a destructive flood, but in a cleansing wave that would wash away decades of deception. The real question wasn't whether they would face resistance, but whether humanity was ready for the light of truth. Protocol Prometheus rippled through global networks like dawn breaking over a darkened world. In hospitals, research facilities, and medical centers worldwide, the truth emerged not in a destructive surge, but in waves of undeniable evidence. Dr. Elena Rodriguez watched from Massachusetts General Hospital as medical professionals began discovering what had been hidden in their own data. "Patient support groups are organizing worldwide," she reported, monitoring social media reactions. "People are connecting their experiences, finding patterns that were deliberately kept isolated. They're creating their own databases of symptoms and reactions." Marcus worked from a makeshift command center they'd established in the hospital's secure research wing, coordinating with a growing network of allies. "Mum knew this would happen," he said, studying the emerging patterns. "She didn't just build a system to expose the truth. She built one that would help people understand it." Dr. Patel analyzed the flood of incoming data from medical professionals around the globe. Medical boards in 30 countries have suspended approval of all drugs connected to the exposed trials. Healthcare workers are coming forward with their own evidence. The wall of silence is breaking, but the response wasn't just institutional. Community health organizations, patient advocacy groups, and medical professionals were forming rapid response networks, sharing information and resources to help those affected by the compromised medications. "Look at this," Dr. Taylor said, highlighting a pattern of emerging community initiatives. Independent labs are offering free genetic screening to identify people at risk. Medical students are organizing volunteer networks to help review patient histories. People aren't just learning the truth, they're acting on it. Marcus's screen filled with incoming messages from healthcare workers worldwide, each sharing their own pieces of the puzzle. A nurse in Singapore had noticed patterns in patient reactions, but been silenced by hospital administration. A pharmacist in Cape Town had questioned unusual prescription patterns and been threatened with license revocation. A medical researcher in Buenos Aires had found statistical anomalies in trial data and been forced to resign. They all saw pieces of it, Marcus realized. Mum wasn't the only one who noticed. She was just the first one who found a way to connect all the dots. Agent Torres entered with updates from the FBI's Global Response Team. Medical regulatory agencies in 12 countries have launched criminal investigations. Interpol is coordinating international enforcement actions, but we're seeing resistance from unexpected quarters. She pulled up a map showing patterns of institutional pushback. Government agencies, research foundations, and medical licensing boards were trying to discredit the revelations, claiming they would destroy public trust in healthcare systems. "Of course they are," Whitman said, studying the response patterns. "These institutions aren't just compromised, they're built on compromise. The whole system of medical regulation has been shaped by decades of influence from pharmaceutical companies and government agencies." But Marcus saw something else in the data. Look at how people are responding, he said, highlighting clusters of community action. Every time an institution tries to suppress information, local networks grow stronger. People are creating their own verification systems, sharing resources, building trust from the ground up. Dr. Rodriguez nodded, watching as patient support groups transformed into powerful advocacy networks. They thought keeping people isolated would keep them powerless. Instead, they created thousands of separate groups ready to connect and support each other. Suddenly, alerts flashed across their screens. Major pharmaceutical companies were initiating emergency protocols, attempting to lock down research, facilities, and secure sensitive data. But they were too late. They still don't understand, Marcus said, watching the failed containment efforts. The truth isn't in their servers anymore. It's in the hands of people they thought they could control. Every patient sharing their story, every healthcare worker speaking out, every researcher comparing notes. They're all becoming nodes in a new kind of network. His mother's journal lay open beside his laptop, its pages now filled with sticky notes and cross-references as they uncovered more layers of her plan. She knew this would happen, he said softly. Not just the exposure of corruption, but the emergence of something new. A healthcare system built on transparency and collaboration. Instead of profit and control, Dr. Patel's screens showed the transformation spreading. Medical schools were revising ethics curricula. Research institutions were implementing new transparency protocols. Healthcare workers were organizing to protect whistleblowers and support independent verification of drug trials. They're not just fighting the old system, Dr. Taylor observed, watching the changes unfold. They're building a new one, based on the principles your mother believed in: truth, transparency, and putting patients first. Agent Torres received urgent updates from her superiors. Federal agencies are mobilizing to contain the crisis, but they're facing resistance from their own employees. Medical officers, research staff, even regulatory officials, they're all choosing truth over institutional loyalty. Marcus opened a new section of the Truth Chain network, one his mother had prepared for exactly this moment. Then let's give them more truth to work with, he said, activating protocols that would help coordinate the emerging response networks. Mom didn't just build a system to expose corruption. She built one to nurture whatever grew in its place. Across the globe, the transformation continued. Every attempt to suppress the truth only revealed more people willing to stand for it. Every threat against whistleblowers brought more healthcare workers forward. Every effort to maintain control showed how many people were ready to build something better. The war wasn't just about exposing past crimes anymore. It was about creating a future where truth couldn't be buried, where patient safety couldn't be compromised for profit, where the power to heal couldn't be twisted into a tool for control. And with each passing hour, that future grew stronger. The attack came without warning. Throughout Massachusetts General Hospital, critical systems began failing. Patient monitors went dark, electronic medical records vanished, and emergency backup systems crashed. In the command center, Marcus and his team watched in horror as similar outages spread across medical facilities worldwide. They're targeting healthcare infrastructure, Dr. Patel reported, her fingers flying across multiple keyboards. Not just communications or records, they're disabling critical care systems, ventilators, dialysis machines, everything connected to hospital networks. Dr. Rodriguez rushed in from the intensive care unit. We're switching to manual systems, but some of our most vulnerable patients. No, she couldn't finish the sentence. The implications were clear. Lives hung in the balance. This isn't just an attack on our network, Marcus realized, studying the patterns. They're trying to force us to shut down the truth chain by threatening patient care systems. They're using sick people as hostages. Agent Torres received urgent updates from federal response teams. Similar attacks are hitting hospitals in every major city. They're claiming it's a cascading system, failure caused by our data release. No, Marcus said firmly, his mother's training guiding his analysis. Look at the attack patterns. This was planned, prepared for months. They built backdoors into critical systems, waiting for the right moment. They're trying to make it look like the truth is dangerous, like exposing corruption puts lives at risk. Dr. Taylor worked with medical staff to coordinate emergency responses. We're implementing backup protocols, but some facilities don't have enough manual equipment. Smaller hospitals are especially vulnerable. Whitman studied the attack, signatures with grim recognition. This has military fingerprints all over it. They're not just trying to shut down the truth chain, they're demonstrating power, showing what happens to those who expose their secrets. But Marcus had seen something in the chaos, a pattern his mother had prepared him to recognize. They made a mistake, he said, accessing deeper levels of the truth chain's architecture. They thought targeting hospital systems would force us to back down. Instead, they just proved everything we've been exposing. His screens filled with new data as his mother's network responded to the attack. Look at these system logs. Every piece of compromised medical equipment, every vulnerable network connection, they were all certified as secure by the same regulatory agencies we exposed. The same people who approved dangerous drugs also created the backdoors being used. In this attack, Dr. Patel's eyes widened as she saw the connection. They're exposing their own infrastructure of control and showing exactly why it needs to be dismantled, Marcus added, initiating new protocols. Mom built safeguards for this too, not just to protect systems, but to reveal who compromised them. Across their screens, new patterns emerged. The truth chain wasn't just documenting the attacks, it was tracing them back to their sources, exposing the networks of control hidden within medical infrastructure. But they weren't fighting alone anymore. In hospitals worldwide, healthcare workers and IT specialists were mobilizing. Independent security researchers began sharing workarounds and safety protocols. Community tech groups offered support to smaller facilities. Look at this, Dr. Rodriguez said, highlighting response patterns. Every attack they launch is bringing more people into the fight. Medical technology specialists, cybersecurity experts, patient advocates, they're all connecting, sharing solutions. Marcus opened his mother's journal to a section he'd only recently decoded. She knew this would happen too, not just the attack, but the response. She wrote about crisis points, where attempts to maintain control would reveal exactly why that control needed to end. His fingers flew across the keyboard, implementing protocols his mother had designed for exactly this moment. They think attacking hospital systems will make people fear the truth. Instead, they're showing everyone why the truth can't wait. The truth chain's architecture evolved, not just documenting attacks, but helping coordinate responses. Independent. Security experts began identifying and closing backdoors. Medical technology specialists shared ways to protect critical systems. Healthcare workers organized to ensure patient safety while corrupted systems were cleaned and secured. They're not just fighting the attack, Dr. Taylor observed. They're rebuilding medical infrastructure to be more resilient, more transparent, more resistant to control. But the opposition wasn't done. New alerts flashed across their screens as pharmaceutical companies began destroying research records, trying to erase evidence before it could be exposed. Let them try, Marcus said, watching as his mother's network captured and preserved every attempt at deletion. They still don't understand the truth isn't in their servers anymore. It's in the hands of everyone they tried to silence, every patient, every healthcare worker, every researcher who chose truth over compliance. Agent Torres received word that federal agencies were preparing to seize control of medical networks, claiming national security concerns. But Marcus saw the desperation in their actions. "They're fighting a war they've already lost," he said softly, touching his mother's journal. "Not just because we exposed their secrets, but because they showed everyone why those secrets were kept. Every attack proves why the system needs to change." Outside their command center, the hospital hummed with determined activity as healthcare workers adapted to the crisis. Manual systems replaced compromised electronic ones. Community volunteers helped coordinate resources. Patients and families joined in supporting each other. The darkness had revealed something powerful: the strength of people united by truth, the resilience of communities choosing transparency over control, the courage of individuals standing together against systemic corruption. Marcus watched the response networks grow stronger, remembering his mother's words. In the darkest moments, truth doesn't just illuminate, it transforms. It shows us not just what we're fighting against, but what we're fighting for. The battle wasn't over, but its true nature was now clear. This wasn't just about exposing corruption or protecting patients. It was about building a future where healthcare served life instead of power, where healing couldn't be weaponized, where truth was the foundation of trust. And with each attempt to silence that truth, more people joined the fight to preserve it. The morning sun cast long shadows through Massachusetts General Hospital as healthcare workers gathered in the main auditorium. On stage, Marcus stood beside Dr. Rodriguez, preparing to address medical professionals from around the world who had joined virtually to coordinate their response to the crisis. "They tried to silence us by attacking hospital systems," Marcus began, his young voice carrying unexpected authority. "Instead, they proved exactly why the current system needs to change. Now we show them the true power of transparency." Behind him, screens displayed real-time data from the truth chain, showing not just the scope of corruption, but the unprecedented response to it. Medical professionals worldwide weren't just sharing information, they were creating new systems of verification and support. Dr. Patel presented their analysis of the attacks. The compromised medical equipment, the vulnerable networks, they all trace back to a small group of companies with deep ties to military research, the same organizations that helped suppress evidence of dangerous drug trials also built backdoors into critical healthcare infrastructure. "But that's not the whole story," Marcus added, bringing up new data streams. "Mom found something else. The companies that compromised medical systems also controlled the agencies responsible for certifying their security. They created a perfect circle of corruption, each part protecting the others." Dr. Rodriguez stepped forward with urgent news from her global medical contacts. Healthcare workers in 17 countries have begun implementing new protocols: independent security audits, open-source medical software, community-verified safety standards. They're not just fighting the current system, they're building a better one. Suddenly, their screens lit up with incoming data. The truth chain had detected massive information transfers from pharmaceutical company servers worldwide. "They're trying to purge evidence before we can expose more connections," Dr. Taylor observed. But Marcus smiled, recognizing the pattern. "No," he said, watching the data flow. "Look at the transfer signatures. These aren't deletions, they're leaks. People inside these companies are choosing truth over loyalty. They're sending us everything." Agent Torres confirmed his assessment. "We're getting reports from pharmaceutical employees worldwide. Research scientists, data analysts, safety inspectors, they're all coming forward with evidence. The wall of silence is crumbling from within." New information poured in. Internal memos showing deliberate suppression of safety data, communications, revealing coordination between supposedly independent review boards, financial records exposing payments to regulatory officials. But most importantly, they received proof of something even darker. These documents, Whitman said, studying the incoming files with growing horror, they show Phase 3 of Operation Chimera. They weren't just developing targeted biological agents, they were preparing to release them. Dr. Patel analyzed the technical specifications. Multiple engineered compounds, each designed to affect specific genetic profiles. They were planning controlled releases in major population centers, disguised as disease outbreaks. Then they'd introduce their treatments, drugs designed to modify behavior and cognitive function under the guise of therapy. A perfect system of control, Dr. Rodriguez added grimly. Use engineered illness to justify engineered compliance, and anyone who resisted would be deemed a threat to public health. But Marcus had seen something else in the data. Look at the timeline, he said, highlighting project dates. They accelerated their plans after Mom started asking questions. They knew someone would eventually expose Phase 1 and 2, so they prepared to jump straight to Phase 3. The attack on hospital systems wasn't just about silencing us, it was a dry run for their real plan. The auditorium fell silent as the implications sank in, but instead of fear, Marcus saw determination spread through the gathered healthcare workers. They hadn't chosen their professions to become tools of control. They had sworn to heal and protect. So we stop them, Dr. Taylor said firmly. Not just by exposing their plans, but by making them impossible to implement. They need compromised medical infrastructure to succeed. We build systems they can't corrupt. Marcus opened new sections of the truth chain, revealing protocols his mother had designed for exactly this scenario. Mum didn't just create a system to expose truth, she built a framework for protecting it. Not through secrecy or control, but through radical transparency and community verification. Across the globe, medical professionals began implementing these new protocols. Independent labs established open verification networks. Research institutions created transparent trial protocols. Healthcare workers built secure communication systems that couldn't be compromised or controlled. They thought attacking us would show their power, Marcus said, watching the response grow stronger. Instead, they showed everyone why that power needs to end. Every system they compromised becomes a point of transformation. Every network they attacked becomes a foundation for something better. Dr. Rodriguez's screens filled with reports from hospitals worldwide as new security measures were implemented. It's not just about protecting systems anymore, she observed. Healthcare workers aren't just defending against attacks. They're creating infrastructure that serves healing instead of control. Agent Torres received updates from FBI cybersecurity teams. Federal agencies are trying to regain control of medical networks, claiming national security concerns, but they're facing resistance from their own personnel. Even military medical staff are choosing to support the new protocols. Because they see the truth, Marcus said, touching his mother's journal. This isn't just about exposing corruption or preventing control. It's about transforming healthcare back into what it should be, a system that serves life instead of power. The morning sun climbed higher as they coordinated responses worldwide. Every attempt to maintain control revealed more people choosing truth. Every attack exposed more allies ready to stand for transparency. Every threat showed more healthcare workers committed to real healing. The war wasn't over, but its nature had fundamentally changed. This wasn't just resistance anymore, it was renaissance. And with each passing hour, as more people chose truth over authority, healing over control, the transformation grew stronger. Marcus looked at his mother's journal, then at the global network of healthcare workers united in purpose. She had known this moment would come, not just the exposure of corruption, but the emergence of something better. And now, her vision of healthcare based on transparency and trust was becoming reality. The tide had turned, and no force of control could stop it now. Deep within the CDC's Secure Operations Center in Atlanta, Director Catherine Chen watched the truth chain's revelations continue to spread. She hadn't seen her nephew Marcus in person since her sister Sarah's death, but now his face appeared on every screen, leading a transformation that was shaking the foundations of global healthcare. "He's so much like his mother," she said softly. To Agent Torres, who had flown in for an emergency briefing, Sarah always said the truth would emerge through patterns. Now Marcus is revealing patterns nobody was meant to see. On the massive displays surrounding them, those patterns were becoming devastatingly clear. The truth chain had exposed not just corruption in pharmaceutical trials or compromised medical infrastructure, but an interwoven system of control that spanned governments, corporations, and international agencies. The World Health Organization just confirmed our worst fears, Dr. Patel reported via secure video link. Every major pandemic response protocol has hidden triggers, conditions that would allow for mandatory deployment of behavior modification drugs under the guise of emergency treatment. Marcus worked from a specialized command center they'd established in the CDC's biocontainment wing. "Look at these distribution networks," he said, highlighting supply chain patterns. "They've positioned stockpiles of their control compounds in every major population center, disguised as emergency medical reserves." Dr. Rodriguez's team had discovered similar preparations in Europe. The European Medicines Agency found unauthorized additives in routine vaccine supplies. Nothing dangerous yet. They were testing delivery systems, studying how different populations would respond. Phase 3 wasn't just about targeted biological agents, Whitman explained, examining classified files he'd helped create. It was about perfecting mass behavior modification, use engineered outbreaks to justify mandatory treatments, then gradually adjust human consciousness on a population scale. Catherine Chen's face hardened as she studied reports from her global counterparts. They infiltrated every major health organization, positioned their people in key regulatory roles. Even I didn't see the full scope until now. They could have launched Phase 3 at any time, using our own emergency response systems to implement their control protocols. But Marcus had found something else in the data streams, something that gave him hope. "Look at these response patterns," he said, highlighting clusters of activity. Every time they positioned control mechanisms, people inside the system noticed. Healthcare workers, researchers, regulators, they all saw pieces of the truth. They just needed a way to connect their knowledge. Dr. Taylor analyzed medical records from multiple countries. The resistance was already there. Every suspicious trial, every compromised system, every hidden protocol, someone documented it, even if they couldn't expose it safely. Your mother found a way to unite all those isolated points of truth. Suddenly, alerts flashed across their screens. Military units worldwide were mobilizing, preparing to seize control of medical facilities under the guise of a security emergency. But the response wasn't what they expected. Medical staff at bases globally are refusing to comply, Agent Torres reported, reading updates from military contacts. They're implementing the truth chain's protective protocols instead. Even military doctors are choosing transparency over orders. Catherine Chen received urgent messages from her counterparts at other national health agencies. It's happening everywhere. Healthcare workers are rejecting control systems, establishing independent verification networks. The WHO just announced emergency protocols to protect whistleblowers and support open research validation. Marcus opened his mother's journal to pages he'd only recently understood. "She knew this would happen," he said, studying her notes. "Not just the exposure of corruption, but the emergence of resistance within the system itself." She wrote about activation points where truth would overcome institutional loyalty. Dr. Rodriguez's screens showed the transformation spreading through medical institutions worldwide. They're not just rejecting the control systems, they're building new frameworks based on transparency and community verification. Every attempt to maintain secrecy is being met with demands for open validation. But the opposition wasn't surrendering quietly. New alerts showed coordinated cyber attacks targeting medical research facilities globally. They're trying to corrupt genetic research databases, Dr. Patel reported, alter records of human genetic diversity to hide evidence of their targeting programs. No, Marcus said firmly, watching the attacks through his mother's analytical framework. Look at the pattern. These aren't just attacks, they're revealing their own infrastructure. Every system they use to control information becomes visible when they try to exercise that control. Catherine Chen studied her nephew's work with pride and amazement. Sarah taught you well. You're not just exposing their methods, you're turning their own systems against them. Because that's what Mom knew would work, Marcus replied, implementing more of his mother's protocols. She understood that control systems contain the seeds of their own transformation. Every mechanism they built to suppress truth can be turned to reveal it instead. Across the globe, the response to Phase 3's exposure continued to grow. Medical professionals weren't just sharing information. They were creating new systems of validation and protection. Research institutions weren't just exposing corruption. They were building frameworks that made corruption impossible to hide. Look at these new protocols emerging, Dr. Taylor observed. Independent verification networks, open-source research validation, community oversight of medical trials. They're not just fighting the old system, they're making it obsolete. And Catherine Chen received word that international health organizations were convening an emergency session to address the crisis. But Marcus saw something more significant in the response patterns. They still think this is about control, he said softly, touching his mother's journal. They don't understand that it's about transformation. Every system they built to maintain power is becoming a channel for truth instead. The truth was no longer just exposing corruption, it was catalyzing evolution. The very infrastructure created to control humanity was becoming a framework for liberation. And with each passing hour, as more people chose transparency over authority, truth over power, the transformation grew stronger. The war for control was ending, the renaissance of healing had begun. In the quiet pre-dawn hours at the CDC, Marcus sat alone in the conference room, his mother's journal open before him. The weight of recent revelations pressed heavily on his young shoulders. Global health organizations were in upheaval, medical systems were transforming, and millions of lives hung in the balance. For the first time since this began, doubt crept into his mind. Catherine Chen found her nephew there, his face illuminated by the soft glow of computer screens still streaming. Data from the truth chain. She saw in his expression the same look her sister would get when wrestling with difficult decisions. I keep thinking about what Mom would do, Marcus said softly, not looking up from the journal. Everyone's counting on us to stop Phase 3, but what if we make things worse? What if exposing everything at once causes more harm than good? His aunt pulled up a chair beside him. Your mother faced the same doubts, she said, reaching into her briefcase. That's why she left you this. She handed him a sealed envelope, his name written in his mother's familiar handwriting. Marcus's hands trembled as he opened it, reading words his mother had written, knowing she might not live to speak them. My dearest Marcus, if you're reading this, then you've discovered what I found. Not just the corruption in our medical systems, but the deeper truth about human potential. They built their empire of control because they fear what humanity might become if people were truly free to heal and grow. Dr. Rodriguez entered quietly, carrying fresh data from global medical networks. She paused, seeing the intimate moment, but Marcus motioned her to stay. His mother's words were meant for everyone fighting this battle. They believe control is necessary because they don't trust people to make wise choices, the letter continued. But I've seen something different in my research. Every attempt to suppress human consciousness only reveals its extraordinary capacity for growth. Every system they built to limit human potential becomes a catalyst for expansion instead. Dr. Patel's voice came through the conference room speakers, reporting new developments from medical facilities worldwide. The replacement protocols are working better than we anticipated. Healthcare workers aren't just rejecting control systems, they're innovating new approaches to healing we never imagined. Marcus read on, his mother's words strengthening. His resolve: you'll face moments of doubt, times when the responsibility feels too heavy. Remember this: truth doesn't need force to prevail. It needs only persistent illumination. Each person who chooses truth over fear, healing over control, becomes a light that reveals the way for others. Agent Torres arrived with updates from federal response teams, but she too fell silent, sensing the importance of this moment. Marcus's voice grew stronger as he continued reading. They built their systems believing humanity needs to be controlled. You'll prove them wrong, not through force, but through faith in people's capacity to choose wisdom when they see truth clearly. Every person who joins this fight brings not just their knowledge or skills, but their inherent wisdom, their deep understanding of what healing really means. Dr. Taylor joined them, bringing reports from hospitals nationwide. The transformation was accelerating, but not in the chaotic way their opponents had feared. Healthcare workers were implementing changes with remarkable wisdom and care, ensuring patient safety while dismantling systems of control. You'll need to trust not just in the truth itself, his mother's letter continued, but in people's ability to handle truth responsibly. The same wisdom that helped healthcare workers notice problems, that made researchers question corrupted trials, that drove people to protect patients despite pressure to comply. That wisdom is humanity's true strength. No system of control can match the power of people choosing to be wise. Catherine Chen received urgent messages from her global counterparts. Health organizations worldwide were not descending into chaos as predicted. Instead, they were reorganizing around principles of transparency and collaborative wisdom. Remember why we do this work, Sarah's letter went on. Not just to expose corruption or prevent harm, but to free humanity's extraordinary capacity for healing. Every person who chooses truth over compliance, wisdom over control, helps build a future where healing serves life instead of power. Marcus looked up from the letter to see tears in his aunt's eyes. She had lost a sister, but Sarah's wisdom lived on through her son and through every person now choosing truth over fear. Your mother saw this moment coming, Catherine said softly. Not just the exposure of corruption, but the choice humanity would face, whether to embrace wisdom or cling to control. New data streamed across their screens as medical professionals worldwide continued implementing transformation protocols. But now, Marcus saw something deeper in the patterns. Not just rejection of control, but emergence of collective wisdom. We're not just fighting against something, he realized, touching his mother's journal. We're fighting for something, for the wisdom Mom saw in humanity, the healing she knew was possible when people are free to choose truth. Dr. Rodriguez's screens showed medical facilities worldwide not just dismantling control systems, but creating collaborative networks of healing wisdom. Every attempt to maintain control revealed more people choosing to trust human wisdom over institutional power. Marcus read his mother's final words. You'll know you're succeeding, not when you've won every battle, but when you've helped people remember their own wisdom. The truth you're fighting for isn't just about exposing what was hidden. It's about revealing what humanity can become when wisdom guides healing instead of fear controlling it. The sun began rising over Atlanta as Marcus stood, strengthened by his mother's words and the evidence of transformation surrounding them. The fight wasn't just about stopping Phase 3 anymore. It was about proving what his mother had always believed, that humanity's wisdom, once awakened, was more powerful than any system of control. The real victory wouldn't come from forcing change, but from helping people choose wisdom. And with each passing hour, as more healthcare workers embraced transparency, more researchers chose truth, more healers reclaimed their authentic purpose, that victory grew closer. The dawn of wisdom was breaking, and no force of control could stop its light from spreading. The CDC's Emergency Operations Center erupted with activity as breakthrough data flooded their screens. Marcus and his team had discovered something extraordinary within the truth chain's analysis of global medical records, a pattern so significant it would change everything. These genetic markers they were targeting, Marcus explained, highlighting clusters of data. They're not just vulnerabilities. They're indicators of human potential they were trying to suppress. Every population they marked for control showed signs of accelerated healing capacity, enhanced cognitive adaptation, increased resilience to manipulation. Dr. Rodriguez studied the medical data with growing amazement. They weren't just trying to control people. They were trying to prevent humanity from evolving beyond their ability to manipulate. The genetic profiles they targeted, these are markers for natural resistance to psychological conditioning. Catherine Chen received urgent updates from research facilities worldwide as similar patterns emerged in their data. Every population they marked for Phase 3 shows the same characteristics: increased neuroplasticity, enhanced immune response, natural resistance to behavioral modification compounds. That's why they accelerated their timeline, Dr. Patel realized, analyzing historical trends. These markers are becoming more common with each generation. They weren't just racing against exposure, they were racing against human evolution itself. Marcus opened new sections of his mother's research, seeing her discoveries with fresh understanding. Mom found this too. She wrote about evolutionary pressure created by their attempts at control. The more they tried to suppress human consciousness, the more it adapted to resist manipulation. Agent Torres entered with critical intelligence from military sources. We've confirmed stockpiles of control compounds in 30 major cities. They were preparing for simultaneous deployment, trying to implement Phase 3 before these resistant traits became too widespread. But Marcus had seen something else in the data, something that filled him with hope. Look at the response patterns in populations they targeted. Every attempt to suppress these traits only accelerated their emergence. They created the perfect conditions for what they feared most: humanity's evolution beyond control. Dr. Taylor studied medical records from communities marked for Phase 3. The markers they identified as dangerous mutations are actually signs of adaptation. Enhanced healing responses, stronger immune systems, increased cognitive resilience. Humanity was naturally evolving defenses against their manipulation. Catherine Chen's screens showed similar findings from health organizations worldwide. It's not just genetic markers. Social behaviors are evolving too. Increased community cooperation, stronger support networks, natural resistance to divisive conditioning. Everything they tried to suppress is emerging stronger. No, because that's how evolution works, Marcus said, remembering his mother's writings. Pressure creates adaptation. They spent decades trying to control humanity, but they only made us stronger. Every system they built to suppress consciousness became a catalyst for its expansion. Suddenly, alerts flashed across their screens. Military units were mobilizing worldwide, preparing to implement Phase 3 before these revelations could spread. But the response wasn't what they expected. Medical officers are refusing deployment orders, Agent Torres reported. Military, doctors are choosing to protect evolution rather than suppress it. Even soldiers are questioning orders to interfere with human development. Dr. Rodriguez's data showed the transformation spreading through medical communities worldwide. Healthcare. Workers aren't just rejecting control systems anymore. They're actively supporting natural healing capacities, helping people understand and develop their evolutionary potential. Marcus implemented new protocols within the truth chain, designed by his mother for exactly this moment. Mom didn't just build a system to expose corruption. She created a framework to support humanity's natural evolution toward wisdom and healing. Catherine Chen received word that international health organizations were convening an emergency session to address these discoveries. But Marcus saw something more significant in the response patterns. They think this is about stopping Phase 3, he said, studying the global data flows. But it's really about embracing Phase Next, humanity's natural evolution beyond systems of control. Mum saw it coming. Everything they built to suppress consciousness is becoming a framework for its expansion instead. Dr. Patel's screens showed medical facilities worldwide implementing new protocols, not just rejecting control systems, but actively supporting human developmental potential. They're not just dismantling the old paradigm, they're midwifing the emergence of something new. Agent Torres received updates from security agencies worldwide as the implications of these discoveries spread. Power structures built on the assumption of human vulnerability were crumbling as evidence of innate resilience and wisdom emerged. But Marcus had seen something even more profound in the data. Look at how people are responding to these revelations. No panic, no chaos, just recognition of truth they already knew intuitively. Humanity wasn't just evolving beyond control. It was awakening to its own wisdom. His mother's journal lay open beside his laptop, its pages now filled with confirmation of everything she had foreseen. She knew evolution couldn't be stopped, he said softly. She built the truth chain not just to expose corruption, but to support humanity's natural development toward wisdom and healing. The sun climbed higher over Atlanta as they coordinated responses worldwide. Every attempt to maintain control revealed more people choosing to support evolution instead. Every threat showed more healthcare workers committed to protecting human development. Every system built to suppress consciousness was becoming a channel for its expansion. The war wasn't just about stopping Phase 3 anymore. It was about embracing humanity's next evolutionary step, the emergence of wisdom that no system could control. And with each passing hour, as more people chose to support this development instead of suppress it, that future grew closer. The dawn of human potential was breaking, and no force could hold back its light. The assault began at midnight. Across the globe, military and paramilitary units launched coordinated strikes against medical facilities, research centers, and data networks. At the CDC, Marcus and his team watched as decades of preparation for Phase 3 unleashed in a desperate bid to maintain control. Multiple breaches reported worldwide, Agent Torres announced, tracking the attacks. They're seizing control of medical infrastructure, implementing emergency protocols, attempting to force deployment of control compounds under the guise of public health measures. Catherine Chen received urgent reports from her counterparts globally. They're declaring a manufactured health crisis, using compromised systems to generate false data, showing a pandemic that would justify mandatory treatments. But Marcus noticed something different in the attack patterns. Look at how they're moving, he said, studying the data flows. This isn't just about deploying Phase 3 anymore. They're targeting specific genetic profiles, everyone showing markers for enhanced resilience and adaptation. Dr. Rodriguez analyzed incoming medical data. They're trying to suppress the evolutionary markers we discovered. Every population targeted shows signs of accelerated development beyond their control systems. Because they know they're running out of time, Dr. Patel added, monitoring global response patterns. Human consciousness is evolving faster than their ability to suppress it. This isn't just an attack, it's their extinction burst. Marcus opened new sections of the truth chain, implementing protocols his mother had designed for precisely this scenario. Mom knew they'd try this. That's why she built in response systems that activate under pressure. Across their screens, they watched as the truth chain transformed their opponent's aggression into unprecedented revelation. Every system they seized became a channel for exposing more truth. Every network they compromised revealed deeper layers of their control infrastructure. They still don't understand, Marcus said, his fingers flying across multiple keyboards. Mom designed the truth chain to get stronger under attack. The more pressure they apply, the more truth emerges. Catherine Chen's screens showed medical facilities worldwide implementing emergency protection protocols, not the ones their attackers intended, but new systems designed to support human evolution instead of suppressing it. Medical staff are refusing to comply with forced treatment orders, Dr. Taylor reported. They're implementing protective protocols, helping people understand and develop their natural resilience. Even in facilities under military control, healthcare workers are choosing to protect evolution rather than suppress it. Suddenly, alerts flashed across their screens as the attackers unveiled their fallback strategy. They're releasing engineered pathogens, Agent Torres warned, trying to force acceptance of their control compounds by creating genuine health crises. But Marcus had seen something in the response patterns that filled him with hope. Look at how communities are reacting, he said, highlighting clusters of data. Natural immunity is adapting faster than their engineered threats. The same genetic markers they tried to suppress are providing protection against their weapons. Dr. Rodriguez's analysis confirmed his observation. These communities aren't just resisting the pathogens, they're developing enhanced immune responses. Every attack is accelerating the very evolution they feared. New data streamed in as medical professionals worldwide shared information through the truth chain. Independent laboratories confirmed that populations targeted for suppression were showing unprecedented adaptation capabilities. Your mother predicted this too, Catherine said softly, watching the evidence unfold. She wrote about humanity's evolutionary response to suppression, how every attempt to control human consciousness would only accelerate its development. Marcus implemented deeper layers of his mother's protocols designed to support this natural evolution. The truth chain wasn't just exposing their opponents' actions anymore, it was helping coordinate humanity's adaptive response. They thought attacking medical infrastructure would force compliance, he explained, watching the transformation spread. Instead, they're proving why their system needs to end. Every attack reveals more people choosing to support evolution instead of suppressing it. Dr. Patel's screens showed the response growing stronger. Communities were establishing independent health networks, sharing resources and information, developing new approaches to healing that supported natural development instead of enforcing control. Look at these adaptation rates, Dr. Taylor said. analyzing medical data from targeted populations. The more they try to suppress human potential, the faster it expands. They're creating exactly what they feared most, humanity's evolution beyond their ability to manipulate. Agent Torres received word that military units worldwide were standing down, refusing orders to implement Phase 3. Even those committed to the old system could see its time was ending. But Marcus had seen something even more significant in the data streams. This isn't just about stopping their attacks, he said, studying the emerging patterns. It's about supporting humanity's next step. Every system they built to suppress consciousness is becoming a framework for its expansion instead. His mother's journal lay open beside his laptop, its pages now filled with confirmation of everything she had foreseen. She hadn't just created a system to expose truth. She had built a framework to support humanity's natural evolution toward wisdom and healing. Through the windows of the CDC, dawn began breaking over Atlanta. The night's desperate attacks had revealed something profound. Not just the failure of control systems, but the emergence of something far more powerful, humanity's natural evolution toward wisdom and healing that no force could suppress. The war wasn't just about defending against Phase 3 anymore. It was about embracing humanity's next evolutionary step, the emergence of consciousness that no system could control. And with each passing hour, as more people chose to support this development instead of fighting it, that future grew closer. The light of human potential was spreading, and no force of darkness could stop its dawn. The United Nations General Assembly chamber hummed with tension as world leaders gathered for an emergency session. On the main screen, Marcus stood alongside Catherine Chen, preparing to present the full evidence of what they had discovered. The truth chain had revealed not just corruption in medical systems, but a coordinated attempt to prevent humanity's natural evolution. Dr. Rodriguez coordinated with medical teams worldwide from their command center at the CDC. Healthcare facilities in every major city are ready to implement the new protocols. The moment we present the evidence, they'll begin dismantling the control infrastructure and supporting natural development instead. Agent Torres received updates from security forces globally. Military and police units are standing down, refusing orders to enforce Phase 3 protocols. Even those who were part of the system are choosing to protect evolution rather than suppress it. But Marcus had seen something concerning in the data streams. They're planning one final attempt, he said, studying patterns of movement through secure networks. Look at these transfers. They're consolidating control of every major medical supply chain. They're going to try to force compliance through artificial scarcity. Dr. Patel analyzed the emerging threat. They're not just hoarding medical supplies. They're positioning to control access to basic healthcare resources. Their message will be simple: accept our control or lose access to essential medicines and treatments. Catherine Chen received urgent communications from health organizations worldwide. They're already implementing restrictions. Hospitals that refuse to enforce Phase 3 protocols are having their supply lines cut. They're trying to force cooperation through desperation. Marcus opened his mother's journal to pages he'd only recently decoded. Mom saw this coming, too. She didn't just build the truth chain to expose corruption. She created alternative supply networks, independent production capabilities, distributed resources they couldn't control. Dr. Taylor studied the hidden infrastructure Sarah Chen had prepared. She didn't just plan for resistance. She built a complete parallel system. Every community they try to control has access to resources they don't even know exist. Across their screens, they watched as these alternative networks activated. Communities that rejected control systems found themselves supported by hidden reserves of medical supplies. Facilities cut off from official channels discovered connections to independent production sources. Your mother understood something. Fundamental, Catherine said, watching the system she'd helped her sister create come to life. True resilience doesn't come from fighting control. It comes from building alternatives that make control obsolete. Marcus implemented the final layers of his mother's protocols, designed to support this transition. The truth chain wasn't just exposing their opponents' actions anymore. It was helping coordinate humanity's emergence into a new paradigm of healing. They think controlling supplies will force compliance, he explained, watching the transformation spread. Instead, they're showing everyone why their system needs to end. Every attempt at coercion reveals more people choosing to support genuine healing instead of enforced control. Dr. Rodriguez's screens showed medical communities worldwide implementing new approaches, not just rejecting control systems, but actively developing ways to support natural healing capacities. They're not just surviving without the old system, they're creating something better. Agent Torres received intelligence about desperate plans for one final strike. They're preparing to release everything, all their bioweapons, all their control compounds, a last attempt to force the world back under their influence. But Marcus had seen something in the preparation patterns that filled him with hope. Look at how communities are responding to the threat, he said, highlighting clusters of data. They're not just developing defenses, they're creating new forms of cooperation we've never seen before. Dr. Patel analyzed the emerging social patterns. These communities aren't just sharing resources, they're developing new ways of organizing healthcare that support natural evolution instead of suppressing it. The pressure isn't creating fear, it's catalyzing innovation. Catherine Chen's screens showed similar transformations spreading through medical institutions worldwide. The old hierarchy of control was being replaced by networks of cooperation and mutual support. That's what Mom really built, Marcus said softly, touching her journal. Not just a system to expose truth, but a framework to support humanity's natural evolution toward wisdom and healing. Everything they try to use against us just makes that framework stronger. As the UN session prepared to begin, Marcus looked out at the assembled world leaders. In their faces, he saw not just the weight of decision, but the recognition of something profound. The moment when humanity would choose whether to cling to control or embrace its own evolution. The truth chain hummed with activity as final preparations were made. Every system they had built to suppress consciousness was about to become a channel for its expansion instead. The question wasn't whether change would come, but how many would choose to support it rather than resist it. Dawn approached as Marcus prepared to present the evidence that would change everything. But the real transformation wasn't in the revelations they would share. It was in the choice humanity faced, whether to embrace its own evolution or cling to the illusion of control. The future hung in balance, not between victory and defeat, but between fear and wisdom. And with each passing moment, as more people chose to support human potential instead of suppressing it, that future grew clearer. The final phase was beginning, and no force could stop the dawn of human evolution now. The United Nations General Assembly fell silent as Marcus stepped to the podium. World leaders leaned forward, screens worldwide carried the broadcast, and humanity waited to learn the truth that would change everything. Behind him, the truth chain's displays showed the full scope of what they had discovered. For decades, Marcus began, his young voice carrying unexpected authority. We have been told that human consciousness needs to be controlled, that our development must be regulated, that our evolution must be suppressed for our own safety. Today, we show why those claims were lies designed to prevent humanity from realizing its true potential. Catherine Chen presented the first wave of evidence, revealing how pharmaceutical companies had deliberately suppressed signs of enhanced human healing capabilities. Medical records from thousands of facilities showed systematic efforts to hide evidence of natural resilience and adaptation. Dr. Rodriguez shared data from global research networks demonstrating how attempts to control human consciousness had actually accelerated its evolution. Every compound they designed to suppress our development became a catalyst for unprecedented adaptation. Every system they built to limit human potential revealed our extraordinary capacity for growth. Suddenly, emergency alerts flashed across global networks. The opposition had launched their final desperate gambit. In major cities worldwide, they released their engineered pathogens and control compounds simultaneously, attempting to force humanity back under their influence through manufactured crisis. But Marcus had seen this coming. "Look at how communities are responding," he said, highlighting real-time data streams. The same populations they had targeted for suppression were showing remarkable immunity to their weapons. Natural adaptation was outpacing engineered threats. Dr. Patel's analysis confirmed the extraordinary development. These communities aren't just resisting the attacks, they're evolving beyond them. The very genetic markers they tried to suppress are providing protection against their last desperate measures. World leaders watched in amazement as the truth chain revealed humanity's natural response to the crisis. Instead of panic or chaos, communities were demonstrating unprecedented cooperation and resilience. Medical professionals worldwide were sharing information and resources through networks that transcended traditional barriers. "This is what they feared most," Marcus explained, accessing deeper layers of his mother's research. "Not just our resistance to control, but our capacity for conscious evolution. Every attempt to suppress human development has only revealed our extraordinary potential for growth." Catherine Chen presented evidence of how control systems had backfired, accelerating the very changes they were designed to prevent. They built an empire based on the assumption that humanity needs to be controlled. Today, we prove that assumption wrong. Suddenly, military forces under control of the old system moved to seize the UN building. But something unprecedented happened. As soldiers approached the assembly chamber, they encountered not resistance, but understanding. Medical professionals sharing truth through the truth chain had reached their families, showing them what was really at stake. "Your children are among those showing signs of enhanced development," Dr. Rodriguez explained to the approaching forces. "The system you serve was built to suppress their natural evolution. Today, you choose whether to protect that system or support humanity's growth." One by one, military units worldwide stood down, choosing to protect evolution rather than suppress it. The truth chain showed their decisions spreading like dawn across the globe, as more people chose to support human development instead of controlling it. Marcus implemented the final phase of his mother's protocols, designed not just to expose truth, but to support humanity's transition to a new paradigm of conscious evolution. Every system they had built to suppress development became a channel for nurturing it instead. "We stand at a crucial moment," he told the assembled leaders and global audience, "not just between truth and deception, but between fear and wisdom. The question isn't whether humanity will evolve. It's whether we will support that evolution or continue trying to suppress it." Dr. Taylor presented medical evidence showing how natural healing capabilities increased when supported rather than controlled. Communities that rejected suppression protocols were demonstrating unprecedented rates of recovery and adaptation. "This is humanity's natural trajectory," Marcus explained, revealing the deeper patterns his mother had discovered. Every attempt to control consciousness only reveals its extraordinary capacity for expansion. Every system built to limit potential becomes a catalyst for its growth. The truth chain hummed with activity as people worldwide made their choice. Medical professionals implemented protocols supporting natural development instead of suppressing it. Research facilities redirected their efforts from control to understanding. Communities chose cooperation over competition. Catherine Chen received word that health organizations globally were dismantling control systems, choosing to support human evolution instead of restricting it. The transformation wasn't being forced, it was being chosen again and again by people recognizing the truth of their own potential. As dawn broke over New York, Marcus shared the final evidence, not just of corruption exposed or control systems dismantled, but of humanity's extraordinary capacity for conscious evolution when freed from suppression. The future they had feared most was revealing itself as humanity's greatest hope. The war wasn't ending through force or defeat, but through transformation of understanding. Every system built to suppress consciousness was becoming a channel for its expansion. Every attempt at control revealed more people choosing to support evolution instead. The dawn of human potential had arrived, and no force could turn back. Its light, 1 month after the United Nations revelation, Massachusetts General Hospital bustled with unprecedented activity. The transformation that had begun with one boy's stand for truth had spread through medical systems worldwide, creating changes few had imagined possible. Dr. Rodriguez guided Marcus through the hospital's newly established Evolution Support Center, where medical professionals work to understand and nurture humanity's emerging capabilities. Every day we discover new aspects of human potential that were previously suppressed, she explained, showing him data from their latest research. Natural healing abilities, enhanced immune responses, accelerated recovery rates. Everything your mother predicted is emerging now that we've stopped suppressing it. Catherine Chen arrived from Washington with updates from the international medical community. The World Health Organization has completely restructured its approach. Instead of regulating and controlling human development, they're creating frameworks to support natural evolution. Your mother's protocols are becoming the foundation for a new paradigm in healthcare. Marcus studied the screens showing global transformation patterns. The truth chain had evolved beyond exposing corruption. It now coordinated worldwide efforts to understand and support human potential. Mum knew this would happen, he said softly, touching her journal. She saw that exposing truth wasn't enough. We needed to build systems to nurture what would emerge once the suppression ended. Dr. Patel's research team had made breakthrough discoveries about humanity's adaptive capabilities. These genetic markers we thought were mutations, they're actually signs of conscious evolution, humanity's natural response to environmental and social challenges. Every attempt to suppress them only made them stronger. The hospital's new Transparency Center displayed real-time data from medical facilities worldwide. Independent verification networks ensured that all research and treatments were openly shared and validated by multiple sources. The old system of secret trials and hidden data had been replaced by unprecedented collaboration. Look at these adaptation rates, Dr. Taylor said, analyzing patterns from communities previously targeted for suppression. Now that we're supporting natural development instead of trying to control it, we're seeing capabilities we never imagined possible. Enhanced healing, increased resilience, accelerated learning. Humanity isn't just surviving without their control system, it's thriving beyond it. Agent Torres brought reports from former military medical facilities now transformed into evolution research centers. The same installations they used to develop control compounds are now studying how to support natural human development. Even their own scientists are amazed by what they're discovering. But the most profound changes were happening at the community level. Local health networks had formed worldwide, sharing resources and knowledge through the truth chain's infrastructure. Every attempt to maintain control had revealed more people choosing to support natural healing instead. "Your mother understood something fundamental," Catherine told Marcus, as they watched new data flow through the transformed systems. "She knew that consciousness evolves through connection, not control. Every network they built to suppress humanity has become a channel for its expansion instead." Dr. Rodriguez's screens showed medical breakthroughs emerging daily, as healthcare workers worldwide shared discoveries through the truth chain. "We're not just treating illness anymore," she explained. "We're learning to understand and support human potential in ways we never imagined possible." Marcus implemented deeper layers of his mother's protocols, designed to nurture this transformation. The truth chain wasn't just coordinating information anymore. It was helping facilitate humanity's conscious evolution toward greater wisdom and healing capacity. "Look at how communities are responding to challenges now," he said, highlighting patterns in the data. "Instead of fear and competition, we're seeing unprecedented cooperation and innovation. The same pressure that once drove control is now catalyzing evolution." Catherine Chen received word that pharmaceutical companies worldwide were transforming their research and development approaches. Instead of designing compounds to suppress symptoms, they were learning to support natural healing capabilities. The profit-driven model of controlled illness was being replaced by a collaborative focus on enhanced wellness. "This is what real healing looks like," Dr. Taylor observed, watching the changes spread through medical systems globally. "Not forcing the body into compliance, but understanding and supporting its natural wisdom." Throughout the hospital, evidence of transformation was everywhere. The old hierarchy of medical authority had been replaced by networks of collaboration between healthcare workers and patients. Treatment protocols now focused on enhancing natural healing capabilities rather than suppressing symptoms. "Mum saw all of this coming," Marcus said, reading from her journal. "She knew that once we stopped fighting human potential and started supporting it, extraordinary changes would become possible." As evening approached, Marcus stood with his aunt, watching the sunset over Boston. Through the hospital windows, they could see the city transformed. The fear and control that had dominated healthcare for decades had been replaced by something powerful: trust in humanity's natural wisdom and potential. The war wasn't over, but its nature had fundamentally changed. This wasn't about fighting corruption anymore. It was about nurturing the extraordinary capabilities that emerged when human consciousness was free to evolve naturally. And with each passing day, as more people chose to support this evolution instead of suppressing it, that potential grew stronger. The dawn of human wisdom had truly begun, and its light was spreading unstoppably across the world. The Pentagon's top-secret medical research facility hummed with tension as the last defenders of the old system made their final stand. Marcus and his team had tracked the remaining opposition leaders here, where decades of suppressed research had laid the groundwork for Phase 3, but what they discovered inside would change everything. Dr. Rodriguez analyzed data streaming from the facility's secured servers. "These aren't just research files," she reported, studying the classified information. "They're tracking data from decades of secret observation. They've been monitoring the emergence of enhanced human capabilities. Since the 1950s, Catherine Chen reviewed the historical records with growing amazement. Every major leap in human consciousness, every spontaneous demonstration of extraordinary ability, they documented it all. Not to understand it, but to prevent others from discovering humanity's true potential." "Because they knew what it meant," Marcus said, accessing deeper layers of the classified data. Every advance in human consciousness threatened their control. They didn't just suppress our evolution, they built their entire power structure on preventing it. Agent Torres received urgent updates from security teams surrounding the facility. The remaining military units loyal to the old system are mobilizing. They're preparing to destroy their own research rather than let the truth emerge. But Marcus had seen something in the facility's data that changed everything. "Look at these research records," he said, highlighting patterns in the classified files. "The scientists they forced to suppress human potential. They've been secretly documenting every breakthrough, preserving evidence of what they discovered." Dr. Patel confirmed his observation as more data emerged. These researchers didn't just record what they were ordered to suppress. They created a comprehensive map of human evolutionary potential. Everything they learned about our true capabilities, hidden within their own system of control. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the facility. The opposition leaders had initiated emergency protocols, attempting to erase decades of research. But they didn't understand what they were really facing. "They still think this is about control," Marcus said, implementing new layers of his mother's protocols. "They don't realize that every system they built to suppress truth has become a channel for revealing it instead." The truth chain responded to their desperate attempts at deletion, transforming their actions into unprecedented revelation. Every file they tried to erase was automatically broadcast to medical facilities worldwide. Every secret they tried to bury became instantly accessible to researchers everywhere. Catherine Chen received word that military units worldwide were responding to the revelation. "They're standing down," she reported. "Even their most loyal supporters are choosing truth over control. The evidence is too clear to deny anymore." Through the facility's windows, they could see opposition forces retreating as more personnel chose to protect truth rather than suppress it. The transformation wasn't being forced. It was being chosen, again and again, by people recognizing the power of their own potential. Dr. Rodriguez's screens showed the impact spreading through global medical networks. Healthcare workers aren't just rejecting control systems anymore. They're actively implementing protocols to support the capabilities that were suppressed. Everything they tried to prevent is emerging stronger than ever. Marcus opened his mother's journal to pages that seemed written for exactly this moment. "She knew this would happen," he said softly. "Not just the exposure of control, but the emergence of what they tried to suppress. Every attempt to maintain power is revealing the truth they fought so hard to hide." The facility's most secure databases yielded their final secrets, revealing the full scope of what had been hidden. Decades of documented cases showing extraordinary human potential, spontaneous healing, enhanced consciousness, accelerated learning capabilities. Everything they had dismissed as impossible was proven not just possible, but natural. This is what they really feared, Dr. Patel realized, studying the revealed data. Not just our resistance to control, but our capacity for conscious evolution. Every system they built to suppress human development became a catalyst for its expansion instead. Agent Torres received confirmation that the last opposition leaders had surrendered, choosing transparency over futile resistance. The transformation wasn't being enforced. It was being embraced by those who finally saw the truth about human potential. Throughout the facility, personnel who had once worked to suppress consciousness were now helping document and understand it. The very instruments designed to detect and control enhanced capabilities were being repurposed to support their development instead. "Your mother saw this coming too," Catherine told Marcus as they watched the peaceful transformation unfold. She knew that once people saw the truth about their own potential, no system of control could stop its emergence. The truth chain hummed with activity as the final pieces fell into place. Every attempt to maintain the old paradigm had only revealed the power of the new one. Every system built to suppress consciousness had become a framework for supporting its expansion. As sunset approached, Marcus stood with his team watching the last defenders of control lay down their weapons. Through the facility's windows, they could see the world transformed. The fear and suppression that had dominated for decades had been replaced by something extraordinary: humanity's recognition of its own unlimited potential. The war was truly ending, not through force or defeat, but through transformation of understanding. Every attempt to maintain control had only revealed more people choosing to support evolution instead. The dawn of human consciousness had fully broken, and no force could turn back its light. 6 months after the Pentagon revelation, the World Health Organization's new Center for Human Evolution bustled with unprecedented activity. The Geneva facility, once a stronghold of medical control, had been transformed into a global hub for understanding and supporting human potential. Marcus stood with Dr. Rodriguez in the main research center, watching as decades of suppressed knowledge finally found purpose in nurturing growth instead of controlling it. Every day brings new discoveries, Dr. Rodriguez explained, showing him the latest research data. Now that we're supporting natural development instead of suppressing it, we're seeing capabilities emerge that even your mother couldn't have predicted. The human potential for healing and growth goes far beyond what we imagined. Catherine Chen arrived from a global medical conference with extraordinary news. Medical schools worldwide are completely restructuring their approach to healthcare. Instead of training doctors to control symptoms, they're teaching them to understand and support the body's natural wisdom. Your mother's protocols have become the foundation for a new paradigm in healing. The center's main display showed real-time data from medical facilities across the globe. The truth chain had evolved into something remarkable, not just a network for sharing information, but a living framework for coordinating human development worldwide. Look at these adaptation patterns, Dr. Patel said, analyzing the latest data. Communities that were once targeted for suppression are showing unprecedented rates of recovery and growth. The very capabilities they tried to control are emerging, stronger than ever, helping solve challenges we've struggled with for generations. Marcus studied the transformation spreading through global medical systems. Every facility that had once served to suppress human consciousness was being repurposed to support its expansion instead. The change wasn't being forced. It was being chosen again and again by people recognizing the power of natural wisdom. Your mother understood something profound, Dr. Taylor observed, watching the evolution of medical practices worldwide. She knew that true healing doesn't come from controlling nature, but from understanding and supporting it. Every system they built to suppress human potential has become a channel for nurturing it instead. Agent Torres brought reports from former military research installations now transformed into centers for evolutionary studies. The same facilities that developed control compounds are now documenting extraordinary breakthroughs in human capability. Even the scientists who once worked to suppress consciousness are amazed by what they're discovering. Through the center's windows, they could see the physical transformation of medical infrastructure worldwide. Hospitals were being redesigned around principles of natural healing. Research facilities were implementing protocols that supported human potential instead of restricting it. The entire framework of healthcare was evolving to serve life rather than control it. "This is what Mom really built," Marcus said softly, touching her journal. "Not just a system to expose truth, but a framework to support humanity's natural evolution toward wisdom and healing. Everything they tried to use against us has become a foundation for growth instead." Catherine Chen received updates from pharmaceutical companies now dedicated to understanding and supporting natural healing capabilities. The profit-driven model of controlled illness had been replaced by a collaborative focus on enhanced wellness. Every attempt to maintain the old system had only revealed the power of the new one. Look at how communities are responding to challenges now, Dr. Rodriguez noted, highlighting patterns in the global data. Instead of fear and competition, we're seeing unprecedented cooperation and innovation. The same pressures that once drove control are now catalyzing evolution. Throughout the center, evidence of transformation was everywhere. The old hierarchy of medical authority had been replaced by networks of collaboration between healthcare workers and patients. Treatment protocols focused on enhancing natural, healing capabilities rather than suppressing symptoms. Research was conducted with complete transparency, verified by multiple independent sources. "Your mother saw this coming," Catherine told Marcus as they watched new data flow through the transformed systems. "She knew that once we stopped fighting human potential and started supporting it, extraordinary changes would become possible." Udi, the truth chain, hummed with activity as medical professionals worldwide shared discoveries and innovations. Every attempt to maintain control had only revealed more people choosing to support natural evolution instead. The transformation wasn't just affecting medical systems, it was changing humanity's understanding of its own potential. "This isn't just about healing bodies anymore," Marcus explained, implementing deeper layers of his mother's protocols. "It's about nurturing the extraordinary capabilities that emerge when human consciousness is free to evolve naturally. Every system they built to suppress development has become a catalyst for growth instead." As evening fell over Geneva, Marcus stood with his team watching the sun set on a transformed world. Through the center's windows, they could see the future they had helped create, not just the end of control, but the beginning of something extraordinary. The fear and suppression that had dominated healthcare for decades had been replaced by trust in humanity's natural wisdom and potential. The war was truly over, not through force or defeat, but through transformation of understanding. Every attempt to maintain control had only revealed more people choosing to support evolution instead. The dawn of human consciousness had fully broken, and its light was spreading unstoppably across the world. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.